To just about nobody's surprise, Anthem's development was a complete and utter disaster, and BioWare is in shambles right now. Yesterday, Kotaku's Jason Schreier published a long article going through the crazy development of Anthem, which was actually meant to be called Beyond. They had t-shirts made and were set to reveal the game named as Beyond at E3 2017, but Electronic Arts had trouble gaining the trademark, so they were forced last minute instead to go with the backup name, which was Anthem. Now, for the last number of weeks since the game was released, we've discussed extensively the various issues that have plagued this live service game. For example, just some of the problems that have hit Anthem includes the game hard crashing PlayStation 4 consoles, default weapons performing better than top tier weaponry, loot being found to not actually matter, and pretty much being pointless because of major design flaws. Loot drop rates being horrible, in which on 2 occasions, a bug increased the rates, making the community happy, but only hours later these bugs were patched, enraging the community. Then there was a protest over these terrible loot drop rates, forcing BioWare to take action and increase loot drop rates, something that the community was happy with. But recently another bug emerged in a new update, making loot drop rates worse, and unlike the previous 2 loot drop bugs, BioWare was much slower with this fix, taking, as far as I understand, over a day. I mean, guys and gals, if you have followed this channel, you know that these are just some of the issues. There's also the Elysian chess crisis, in which BioWare developers were caught lying about what would be included in them. Then there's complaints over the repetitive and boring endgame, the anger over BioWare purposefully holding back on releasing cosmetics that were shown in marketing as far back as 5 months ago. And then there's also BioWare's pathetic reasoning for why there's a lack of weapon variety, something they downplayed as not being important in a third-person looter shooter. And then there's also BioWare's pathetic response to users pointing out the tons of features that were shown at E3 2017 and E3 2018 that are not in the released game. BioWare has replied by saying game development changes and it's the cost of transparency. Anyway, with all these issues, and there are certainly many more I'm not bringing up for the sake of time, but with all of these problems, I think it was clear development of this game was a mess, and there was some serious mismanagement within BioWare, and yesterday Kotaku's article finally confirmed many of our suspicions. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this article, as I highly recommend that you read it for yourself to get the complete picture of how fucked Anthem was, and kind of still is, but I do want to go through some of the major revelations because Jason Schreier spoke to 19 Anthem developers who helped to give the full story on the chaotic development of Anthem. So let's start it off with this. One of the biggest issues that BioWare is facing is the stupid, incompetent game engine that is Frostbite, which Electronic Arts is forcing them to use. This game engine was created by DICE for the Battlefield games, and Patrick Soderlund led an initiative to have all the studios within Electronic Arts use the same technology. In 2011, with Dragon Age Inquisition, BioWare first shifted to this engine, and it proved to be a mess because many basic features that are in other engines like a third-person camera did not exist in Frostbite, so it had to be built from the ground up. Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem would endure similar issues, and as one developer said, it's hard enough to make a game, it's really hard to make a game where you have to fight your own toolset all the time. And I found this paragraph very interesting for understanding that BioWare had ambitious ideas for Anthem, but they could not be implemented because the engine is simply stupid. Throughout those early years in development, the Anthem team realized that many of the ideas that they'd originally conceived would be difficult if not impossible to create on Frostbite. The engine allowed them to build big, beautiful levels, but it just wasn't equipped with the tools to support all of those ambitious prototypes that they'd created. Slowly and gradually, they started cutting back on the environmental and survival features that they devised for Anthem, in large part because they just were not working. Now, after the posting of this article, a former BioWare developer actually commented publicly on Twitter about the disastrous engine and their experience using it. Manveer Hare stated, "I can't speak to any of Anthem's development itself, but all the criticisms of Frostbite, the shittiest engine I've ever worked with, are 100% on point, and seriously, my life is so much better on Unreal now, where things, work and content creators are, empowered. Some days I wake up from nightmares of Frostbite taking 2 days to do something I can do in 2 hours developers and a competent engine. Beautiful looking engine that is dog crap to use, F Frostbite. But another issue connected to the Frostbite engine came in 2016 when FIFA was making the shift to using the engine, in which because this is Electronic Arts' big money making franchise, they took developers from BioWare with experience on the engine and moved them over to help, which was a bit of a problem because BioWare was already understaffed and it doesn't seem like there was enough experience on the engine. But it seems throughout the development of Anthem, BioWare has been struggling with little support from those who created and have actual knowledge of the engine. Electronic Arts actually has a team set up for Frostbite support, but the amount of time that the team helps out a developer is based on how much money they bring in for Electronic Arts, which means BioWare has not been getting much assistance with an engine that is simply hell to use. But continuing on, we did get some details on the actual story of the game and how that ultimately ended up as another disaster. It was said that in early 2015, Dragon Age writer David Gator was moved on to Anthem, and as he said to Kotaku, when he started on the project, Anthem design director Preston Wadamunuk, I can't say that name, had pushed him in a science fantasy direction. He would further state, "I was fine with that, as fantasy is more my comfort zone anyway, but it was clear from the outset that there was a lot of opposition to the change from the rest of the team. Maybe they assumed the idea for it came from me, I'm not sure, but comments like, 'It's very Dragon Age' kept coming up regarding any of the work me or my team did, and not in a complimentary manner. There were a lot of people who wanted to say over Anthem's story and kept articulating a desire to do something different without really being clear on what that was outside of it just not being anything BioWare has done before. From my perspective, it was rather frustrating." Which I have completed the story of Anthem, and it really is unfortunate what it ended up being. It really is such a wasted opportunity, but later in this article it was mentioned how because booking performance capture was so expensive, BioWare often had to just one-shot to get things right, which because the game was rapidly changing, it led to some scenes and dialogue not making sense. One developer said there are little bits of dialogue, little moments in some of the performance captured scenes that if you stop and think do not make any sense. The reason this doesn't make any sense is because they changed some of the gameplay down the line, but it was impossible to change the performance capture. Unfortunately, in the release game, the story was mediocre at best, with everything really feeling bland and uninteresting, including the Monitor as a villain. David Gator actually left in 2016, and the story was soon after rebooted, and just like I said, an absolute disaster, and it could have been something amazing, but just another part of Anthem that ended up being a mess. Now, a common theme through this report is the lack of vision with Anthem. Now, the part of this report that actually angers me is confirmation that the Tomb Quest, or the Legionnaire challenges, which many complained about at launch for being too grindy, was put in place on purpose and was originally far worse. As it was stated in this article, because the game was in pre-production for so long and Electronic Arts was tired of waiting and wouldn't extend the development any longer, BioWare was rushing to the February release date. By the end of 2018, those who remained on Anthem wished they could have had just a few more months. Under Mark Dara and the production staff, there was real momentum, but it became clear to everyone that the game would not ship with as much content as fans expected. They came up with some artificial solutions to extend the campaign, like Challenges of the Legionnaires, a tedious mandatory part of the main story that involves completing grindy quests in order to access tombs across the game's world. Originally, according to two BioWare developers, this mission includes time gates that might force players to wait days to complete it all. Fortunately, they changed this before launch. That mission was controversial even within BioWare, said one developer. The reasoning was to definitely throttle player movement, which it's crazy I have to say this, but a lot of the issues with Anthem is on BioWare, and it's amazing how horrendous the development of this game went, and I find it pathetic that this grind wall was in place on purpose just to extend the game's length. But yeah, for a while I've seen many making excuses for why Anthem's missions are extremely bland, with really you just doing the same thing every single time. I mean, it makes sense now, they were probably rushing after wasting years going nowhere. This also explains why the end game is so disappointing, with the big new content Cataclysms not coming until May. Possibly. Now, when Casey Hudson left originally in 2014, it seems that's really where the trouble began. As it was said by some of the veterans of BioWare, Casey was their Captain Jean-Luc Picard, and losing him was costly. It just doesn't seem this game was properly managed, which is why Anthem was in development for almost 7 years, but it's actually closer to 1 year. That's actually another fascinating detail. It seems for years, when Casey left, BioWare had a leadership problem where things were not being accomplished because developers could not come to an agreement. One developers said stuff would take a year or two to figure out because no one really wanted to make a call on it. Now, like I said at the start, I don't want to go through everything, but I want to make sure you understand how the Frostbite engine is hurting BioWare and will continue to hurt them beyond Anthem, and additionally how the BioWare story, which is what this developer is known for, was thrown out the window because it was too Dragon Age-like, and lastly, how desperate this developer got that they purposefully implemented grind walls that were originally far worse. But now let's do a sort of rundown of some of the other amazing revelations. Like, there was apparently a mandate to make sure the game was unmemeable. Looks like the BioWare leadership was not exactly happy about the Mass Effect Andromeda jokes that have been made. Anyway, they achieved making Anthem unmemeable by using high-end performance capture, but as we all kinda knew, the E3 2017 gameplay trailer was mostly fake. It was made from a demo that apparently BioWare developers had to crunch to make in time for Patrick Soderlund, who at one point hated the game before seeing this demo. Additionally, at E3 2017, the game was just exiting pre-production with barely a single mission implemented, and it was actually said that by the beginning of 2018, because of all the issues and mismanagement, only one mission was completed. Again, next, something that we've discussed already with Anthem in the past, and that's how BioWare suffered from another major issue, and that was lead developers and veterans leaving the company. As Jason noted in this report, the amount of developers jumping ship was actually much more than any of us knew about, which an important thing to note is what made BioWare such a phenomenal studio is the talent, and sadly most of the talent has departed in recent years. Now, as the game was close to launch, early mock reviews were provided by outside consultants, and they predicted that Anthem's Metacritic score would land in the high 70s, something BioWare's leadership felt fine with, which, yeah, it didn't happen. It's crazy that this game and vision began when wrapping up the Mass Effect trilogy, and it was codenamed Dylan because they hoped it would be the Bob Dylan of video games, meaning something that would be referenced by video game fans for years to come, and I mean it will be referenced for years to come, but probably not in the way that they ever wanted or expected. Overall though, looking at this entire piece and forming an opinion, what I can say is BioWare must change or they are doomed. I actually don't blame Electronic Arts entirely for what has happened. A lot of this just seems to be on a studio falling apart with piss poor leadership. Another tidbit in this article that was mentioned was how Dragon Age Inquisition actually suffered similar problems to Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem, but it was successful and received well, which as some developers noted was not good because it just enabled terrible production practices that have doomed the last two BioWare games. In all honesty, this article is just sad because the original pitch actually sounded pretty cool. Anthem was never meant to be a looter shooter, but unfortunately, that's what it is today. Now, the reaction to this report has been very interesting because many fans are just simply pissed. Particularly the Anthem subreddit, who was already frustrated with the ongoing problems, just exploded when this report came out. You have some threads like, "To BioWare executive leadership, you stole a whole lot of money from us, and we deserve a real and candid response about how you're going to turn this ship around," and "Final nail in the coffin," and "To all the devs at BioWare, I'm so sorry." So a lot of the anger has actually only grown because of BioWare's statement about the article. This was made public on the BioWare blog, in which they responded to the article saying, "We'd like to take a moment to address an article published this morning about BioWare and Anthem's development. First and foremost, we wholeheartedly stand behind every current and former member of our team that worked on the game, including leadership. It takes a massive amount of effort, energy, and dedication to make any game, and making Anthem would not have been possible without every single one of their efforts. We chose not to comment or participate in this story because we felt there was an unfair focus on specific team members and leaders who did their absolute best to bring this totally new idea to fans." It's actually not very new. But anyway, we didn't want to be part of something that was attempting to bring them down as individuals. We respect them all, and we built the game as a team. I will say that the only person that this really tore down, I would say, is Patrick Soderlund. He don't work for Electronic Arts anymore, and I mean, he's kind of already made himself into a bit of a villain based on some of the other things he said about other games. Anyway, this post would continue next explaining how they care about the health of their employees and they feel bringing Casey Hudson back has been a major benefit to the studio. Next, they somewhat downplay the complaints over crunch time, which they claim has not been a point in feedback, although the reason why people talk and reach out to Jason Schreier is to make the public aware of the problems within. Anyway, they finish their statement saying, "As a studio and a team, we accept all criticisms that will come our way for the games we make, especially from our players. The creative process process is often difficult, the struggles and challenges of making video games are very real, but the reward of putting something we created into the hands of our players is amazing. People in this industry put so much passion and energy into making something fun, we don't see the value in tearing down one another or one another's work. We don't believe articles that do that are making our industry and craft better. Our full focus is on players and continuing to make Anthem everything it can be for our community. Thank you to our fans for your support. We do what we do for you. Which this article had to have been written by one of the business suits at Electronic Arts because they completely missed the point of this article. Many developers want to see change, and from this statement, unfortunately it seems BioWare EA's leadership just want things to continue failing and falling apart. I'm trying to be nice, but their reaction to an honest report giving insight into the real development of the game, not the fairy tale that they try to have everybody believe, is saying that articles like this don't make the gaming industry better. That really is interesting, considering Anthem was released as an unfinished flawed mess, which was closer to an early access state, not a $60 finished AAA game. If the leadership and executives cared so much about getting Anthem right for consumers, the game wouldn't be out yet, and a story like this would not have to be written. Visceral Games, the longtime developer of Dead Space, died in 2017 because they could never adapt to EA's live service formula, and I still wonder if BioWare's death is near. They've had two big messes in a row, and Electronic Arts is known for pulling the plug early. But after reading this report, I really don't know what the future of BioWare will look like, if there is one, and if I should have any hope for Dragon Age 4, which has already been cancelled and rebooted. But honestly, BioWare is heading in the wrong direction, and based on the reaction to this report from the leadership of this company, it doesn't seem like they're listening to the real concerns and issues raised. Anyway, what is your opinion of Anthem right now, and what's your reaction to this report confirming just a disastrous and chaotic development? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or found any informative value, and make sure to follow my other social media accounts for updates on new videos. Links are always down in the description below. I'm most active on Twitter giving opinions on news that I don't always get into video form, so make sure to follow me over there. Also check out my Discord for all sorts of discussion on games, and again, thank you for joining. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.